Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started on What If Naruto was the son of Cersei Lannister and Robert Baratheon. The Fourth Shinobi World War had finally reached its peak. Obito had been died after he had been forced by Black Zetsu to bring back Madara Uchiha using the Rinne Tensei. But thanks to Obito's change of heart, after Naruto made him realize how wrong he had been, had at least destroyed Madara's other Rinnegan that had been inside his left eye and destroyed Black Zetsu. While the other eight-tailed beasts thrashed Madara around, Naruto had taken the opportunity to blow up the now empty Geto statue with a Rasenshuriken tailed beast bomb combo. Without the Geto statue, Madara had no hope of becoming the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, and thus, he had failed. Madara, with only one eye and a fading control over Hashirama's Sage Mode, was currently being thrashed by a barrage of attacks from by Nine Tails Sage Mode Naruto. Come on, Madara, what's wrong? Aren't you supposed to be the Tree Grandpa's equal? Naruto taunted Madara as he punched his face. You think that you can just steal Nature Chakra? Fool, it takes training to use Nature Chakra, even Tree Grandpa needed to train in order to use it. Naruto shouted as he kneed Madara in the stomach. You tried to take away everyone's free will. Why? Because you were dealt a bad hand in life, so you think that you should put the whole world in an illusion. Naruto shouted as he buried his fist in Madara's gut, causing the man to keel over, blood and saliva flying from his mouth. Fool, living is not for the weak. And real peace for the world can only be attained when everyone wants it. Even if you had succeeded in casting the infant Tsukiyomi, it's still a jutsu. Eventually, the illusion would have ended and we would be right back to square one. Naruto knocked Madara over and stepped on his chest. You will never win against me, Madara. Do you know why that is? It's because your cause is worthless. Your cause is not worth fighting for, and that is why you will always lose to me or Tree Grandpa. Naruto stated as he reached down, placing his hand on Madara's chest, and with a blast of Nine Tails Chakra, killed all of Hashirama's cells inside of Madara's body, which caused the face of Hashirama that was on Madara's chest to fall out, leaving a bloody pit in Madara's chest. Once Naruto did that, Madara lost the medium through which he could safely manipulate Nature Chakra. The chakra began to turn him into a tree before he forcibly expelled it from his body, but Naruto severed the arm of Madara's that was turned into a tree, leaving him without any arms since the other was destroyed by the tailed beast assault, and knocked Madara back to the ground. How could I, Madara, the greatest Uchiha to ever walk the earth, fail? The revived Uchiha thought. He was angry at so many people right now, he didn't even know what to do. That idiot Obito had started to awaken the 10 tails before he had collected all of the tailed beasts. Which was why he was in this mess anyways. Hashirama hadn't been any help, seeing as he had been trying to stop him with his legendary wood-style bloodline limit. The last Uzumaki was royally pissing him off because Madara could not gain the upper hand. The Kyuubi had always been his personal plaything, though now it looked like karma had finally come back to bite him in the ass. The blonde Uzumaki had not only destroyed the Geto statue, which meant no becoming a Jinchuriki of the 10 tails for Madara, but Naruto had been thoroughly thrashing Madara around like a ragdoll, and now that he had destroyed Hashirama's cells, Madara lost access to wood style and his ability to use Sage Mode. Oh no, Madara thought, as his only remaining Rinnegan vanished, leaving only his eternal Mangekyo. No, what have you done to my Rinnegan? Idiot. The only reason you could use the Rinnegan was because you stole DNA from Tree Grandpa. Without that, your Sharingan is back to its true state. Speaking of which, Naruto said as he used Flying Thunder God to teleport to Madara, and without warning, ripped out the Madara's remaining eye and crushed it. Madara screamed in pain as he lost his last eye, before Naruto compounded on that pain by breaking Madara's spine, paralyzing him from the waist down. It's time, Naruto said to himself as he opened up the seal on his stomach and released Kurama from him. Naruto had combined both halves of Kurama earlier by taking it out of his father and recombined both. Naruto collapsed as his life was slowly fading from him. You shouldn't be dragged into hell with me. This is goodbye, old friend. Naruto, behind you, Kurama shouted at Naruto. He turned to be stabbed in the stomach by Sasuke. Well, Dobi, thanks for making this easy for me. Now I can kill all the cage and the tailed beasts and begin my revolution. Sasuke gloated, but that all stopped when he was pierced through the stomach by Kurama's claw. Idiot Uchiha, we knew you would try something like this. So glad that you proved me right. Your clan is a disease. Kurama noted as a quick burst of high-quality tailed beast chakra destroyed Sasuke's entire chakra network, causing him to cry out in pain. Naruto, you need to hurry while you still have time. I know, Naruto panted as he picked himself up and flashed through hand signs. Reaper Death Seal, Naruto said as the god of death appeared behind. Why have you summoned me, child of prophecy? The Shinigami asked. Lord Shinigami, I need you seal away Madara Uchiha and Sasuke Uchiha. These monsters attempted to destroy the world, and they must not be allowed to come back. Naruto pleaded. Very well then, the Shinigami said as he reached through Naruto and ripped both souls of the Uchiha's souls out of their bodies. At least, the world is safe now, Naruto huffed, as his life neared its end as his back hit the dirt. Do not be afraid, child of prophecy, for you have saved the world. You have the gift I shall now grant you, hero. Rejoice, for you have earned it. Divine Jutsu, reincarnation of the deserving, the Shinigami said as Naruto Uzumaki's eyes closed for the final time, while his soul was sent to a new world, to live a better life than the one he had lived here in the elemental nations. Westeros, 280 AC. Thunder echoed and lightning flashed throughout the Red Keep, as torrents of rain were unleashed from the heavens. It was almost as bad as the storm that Daenerys Targaryen was born in, and yet the cries of a woman could still be heard, above all the noise of the tempest. The screams of Cersei Lannister filled the birthing chamber. She had labored for almost 6 hours brining this new child into the world. The intense pain that came with giving birth was not something she missed, but after 6 hours the child was finally emerging from her womb. The queen's midwives huddled around her as they cared for her, cleaning up the blood and wiping the sweat from her forehead. Push, Your Grace, push. Cersei would normally have yelled or reprimanded her servants had she not been giving birth, so she followed the commands of the midwives, screaming in agony as she finally pushed the babe from her body. As she did so, there was a huge crash of thunder as a bolt of lightning lit up the room, the noise deafening all sound inside the room. The cries of a baby replaced the screams of a mother's agony, as a midwife cradled the newborn in her arms, checking for any signs of problems with the birth and wrapping him in swaddling clothes. Satisfied that there was nothing wrong with the child, the midwife carefully placed the newborn in its mother's arms, smiling as she did so. Congratulations, Your Grace, it's a healthy boy. The midwife turned to the others standing there, shooing them out of the room, leaving the queen with her son and her brother, Jaime. A smile spread across Cersei's face, despite the exhaustion and pain she was still experiencing, as she reached for the swaddling cloth covering the babe's face. Another child from my beloved Jaime, Cersei thought, another pure Lannister. Pulling the cloth back, however, she felt as if her heart stopped. Instead of seeing golden blonde curls and green eyes, looking up at her instead was a babe with sapphire blue eyes and tufts of spiky, jet black hair. This is not Jaime's child. Cersei panicked inside her mind. How can this be? Question mark. I was so careful. I went to that damn woman every time that oaf laid with me. This must be some cruel joke. I can't raise his child. I can't. As a wave of hopelessness swept over Cersei, the babe smiled at her, cooing as he reached for her breast instinctively. She brought his mouth to her nipple and allowed him to suckle, sitting in shock and feeling numb. She raised her head to look at Jaime, who smiled weakly as he turned to leave the room, barely able to disguise his disappointment. Jaime, I'm sorry. The words could barely escape her mouth. She was so choked with anger and shock at her child's origins. There is nothing to be sorry for. He is a beautiful child. But he is not mine. Jaime smiled sadly at Cersei, before turning and walking out of the door, leaving Cersei alone with her child. 290 AC. King's Landing. In the training yard of the Red Keep, the sound of blunted training swords could be heard, as blunted steel struck blunted steel. Prince Naruto Baratheon was in his heavy training armor, continuing his 2-hour training session with Ser Barristan. Ser Barristan had taken him on as a squire a year back. While Naruto was a prince, he insisted he at least go through the same duties that all squires go through. That did not mean that Naruto wasn't keeping up with his many studies. Naruto was quite intelligent for 11 years old. Anyway, Naruto attempted to strike Baratheon, but the elderly knight parried and redirected his prince's blow with expert grace. Naruto was scarcely able to block the next strike that came at his ribcage. Naruto blocked another strike to the left side of his head, but failed to see the lunge at his stomach until he was on his back, groaning. "You've gotten better, Prince Naruto," Baratheon Selmy said as he extended his hand out to Naruto, which he graciously accepted. "This time it took me 6 moves to defeat you. That's double the number of last time." "True, Barry, but I still can't beat you," Naruto complained a bit. "I have trained in the way of the sword my entire life, my prince. It will be some time before you can best me." Naruto had insisted that when Baratheon sparred with him, he go all out and not hold back. Naruto wanted to get a sense of how good he was. In the beginning, every spar, Baratheon would defeat him in 1 move. As they sparred every day, he slowly got the hang of fighting grown men. Perhaps in a few years, once he had grown, he would last much longer than 6 moves. Still, to last more than 1 move against the best knight of the century was nothing to scoff at. "We will continue again tomorrow, my prince. I believe your lessons with the Grand Maester, correct?" Baratheon said as the elderly knight and young prince re-racked their training swords. "Yes, I do. Thank you for the lesson, Barry," Naruto said energetically as he sped off towards the Red Keep. Baratheon chuckled to himself. The black-haired prince was certainly enthusiastic and a dedicated student. If he continued at the rate he was going, he had no doubt that the prince would be one of the best swordsmen in Westeros. The Red Keep, library. Naruto wasn't just a dedicated swordsman. He also was an avid student of history, and desired to learn politics as he grew older. He reached the library and found Grand Maester Pycelle already inside, sitting down. "Grand Maester," Naruto said as he caught his breath, which got the older man's attention, "I am sorry for being late. My huff lesson with Barry took a bit longer than we expected." "It is no problem, my prince. I only just arrived. Please have a seat," Pycelle stuttered. Naruto liked the Grand Maester well enough, as he was kinda nice to him. "FYI, I will only be doing a stutter from Pycelle for 1 word every time he speaks, as that is annoying to write all that damn stuttering. Today for our history lesson, Prince Naruto, we will be continuing our discussion of the sea conquest of Dorne," Pycelle said. "As we learned in our previous lesson, King Daeron I ascended the Iron Throne after the death of his father, King Aegon III, also known as Dragonbane. King Daeron wanted to complete the campaign begun by his ancestor, Aegon the Conqueror. Daeron the young dragon was only 14 years old when he began his war in 157 AC. While the King conquered Dorne within the year, he soon lost it in 4 years, and would later be killed on the Prince's Pass when the Dornishmen met with him under a banner of peace. But, why? Why would the Dornishmen rebel? I thought in our last read, Daeron had taken a number of hostages. Naruto asked, generally confused. The Dornish are a dishonorable, arrogant lot, my prince, with different customs from the rest of Westeros. A disgraceful people that break the guest right and commit murder under banners of peace. The 7 kingdoms would do well to be rid of them, Pycelle said, making his personal opinion known. Regardless, the hostages taken by Daeron I Targaryen ensured the loyalty of the Dornish nobility, but the small folk continued to rebel against Targaryen rule. Lord Lionel Tyrell moved with his train from one keep to the next each month, chasing the rebels and punishing those who had given them aid. The rebels attacked his train, stealing or destroying supplies, killing soldiers or horses, and burning camps. True rebellion began when Lionel reached Sandstone, the seat of House Q Corgyle. It was his custom to turn the lords of the keeps he stayed in out of their chambers, to sleep in their beds. One night at Sandstone he found himself in a bed with a heavy velvet canopy, and was informed that he could summon a wench by pulling on the sash. When he did so, the canopy opened and 100 red scorpions fell upon him. The news of his death led to a rebellion throughout Dorne, and in a fortnight all the work of the young dragon was undone. In 161 AC, the Dornishmen agreed to meet to discuss terms and renew their fealty. It was a ploy to kill King Daeron I, however, and the Dornish attacked the young dragon while under a peace banner. Of Daeron's Kingsguard knights, 3 died, Srm and the Dragon Knight was captured and another yielded. Sir Olivar Oakheart of the Kingsguard died at the side of King Daeron I, though it is unknown whether he was one of the 3 Kingsguard knights who died with Daeron, or whether he died earlier during the war, in defense of his king. Alistair Oakheart blew his warhorn while dying in the Prince's Pass, but it is unconfirmed if this was the same incident as Daeron's death. And with King Daeron's death, the conquest of Dorne officially ended. The Grand Maester got up and said, "I have a small council meeting soon, Prince Naruto. Read over the sea conquest of Dorne and we will finish our discussion of it on the morrow." And with that, Hycel slowly waddled out of the library. It was late in the day and Naruto read through the conquest several times. He was studious like that. By the time Naruto had finished reading through the conquest of Dorne by King Daeron a 3rd time, it was already dark out and he was tired. He opened the door and almost walked out when he noises and hid behind one of the pillars. "Come on," a hushed voice came, "we need to get out of here." "Shut it," a second voice came, "you know why we are here. King Balin wanted this stuff for our mighty Iron Fleet." "Yes, I know that, but we already got it. Why are we inside the Red Keep, kidnapping the princess? If we get caught, we're fucked. We've been sneaking around the castle for months. We were to take either the queen or the little princess Micrella and make her my salt wife. I admit that I, Dennis Drum, have never fucked a little girl before, but I imagine her premature cunt will feel so good around my cock. Let's hurry up and get out of here," he commanded. What? Naruto thought to himself, they wanna do what to my little sister? Now Naruto was not very innocent for a 10-year-old boy. He had walked in one day on his father by accident one day when he was 8. Both his father and the whore in his dad's bed were naked. Robert had a pitcher of wine in his hand, as he plowed the whore from behind. Cersei had been the one to find him like that. Cersei sent the whore away and slapped his father across the face for doing that her son. Cersei was then left with the rather uncomfortable duty of informing a 8-year-old what sex was, which was made more awkward due to the fact that Cersei hated Naruto, Tommen and Micrella for being true-born children of Robert. She had Tommen and Micrella 6 years ago. Naruto was smart, and while he didn't understand everything, like why his mother did not love him, he knew that forcing a woman to have sex was bad and those that do deserve to die. Yet, it should be known that the Baratheon rage, even a child's, is a terrible thing to behold. Most who encounter the pure, unadulterated rage of a true Baratheon don't live to tell the tale. Mostly because they tend to die in brutal and horrific ways. Argilac, the arrogant, Durandon, had been stupid enough to taunt Orys Baratheon during their battle about how he was going to enjoy raping Orys's half-sister Rhaenys while making him watch. Argilac didn't last another minute until an enraged Orys bifurcated Argilac at the waist and then proceeded to chop off his head. Rhaegar Targaryen was said to have been the finest swordsman in the 7 Kingdoms. That didn't save him when he faced Robert in single combat. For Robert didn't use a sword, he used a warhammer. Wielding his warhammer in one hand, Oakenshield in the other, his father caved in Rhaegar's breastplate before smashing his brain into 100 pieces. The most well-known incident of someone surviving and besting an enraged Baratheon was Sir Duncan the Tall. Prince Duncan the Small Targaryen, son of Aegon V, was betrothed to Lionel, the Laughing Storm, Baratheon's daughter. But Prince Duncan broke his betrothal, which caused Naruto's ancestor to secede from the 7 Kingdoms and declare himself the Storm King. The rebellion would end after a trial by combat between Lionel and Sir Duncan the Tall. Sir Duncan had been lucky. While he was one of the best knights in the realm, befitting his place as Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, and one of the strongest, Lionel was a Baratheon, wielding their ancestral warhammer in one hand. Sir Duncan scarcely avoided blows that would have killed him nearly 10 different times. The only reason he survived was because by this time, Lionel Baratheon was old and had lost much of his former strength. Naruto grasped the Valyrian steel dagger his father had gifted him for his 10th name day. It was a simple dirk with a black leather grip and a golden stag's head pommel. He peeked around the pillar but not enough that the Ironborn could see. Then again, the Ironborn were facing away from him, so it's not like they see him. The first guy in front was holding a jug of something, the second was holding Micrella with a bag over her tiny little head, and the third guy was probably Dennis Drum. Naruto, even in his rage, knew he had to get this right the first time, because he was still 10, and these Ironborn were at least twice his age. He took off his boots so they wouldn't hear him approach from behind. Then, with all the speed his little yet powerful body could muster, Dirk gripped tightly, he jumped onto Dennis Drum's back and in one fluid motion, stabbed his dirk into the back of the Drum's neck, severing his spine, with the point of the blade coming out the front of the Ironborn's throat. As Dennis fell to the floor, gurgling as blood flowed from his wounds like a river, Naruto pulled his dirk out and rolled forward in one fluid motion to the Ironborn holding Micrella, who was squirming around with the gag in her mouth, trying to escape from the bad men. He had just turned around, and didn't have time to react as the prince stabbed his dirk into the top of his abdomen, and with all his might, he roared and pulled the Valyrian dagger down, cutting him all the way down to his cock and balls. Blood spurted outward like a gusher as his intestines and severed organs dangled outside of his body. Naruto quickly got to Micrella, pulled gag off and cut her bindings loose. "Micrella, go get help. Run." Naruto sheathed his dirk and grasped the sword of the Drum he had killed as his little sister ran. They had been within a foot of each other, so he just reached and picked it up. By this point the other Ironborn had put down the jug he was carrying and pulled out an axe. Naruto parried the attack and sliced his opponent's arm off, causing him to scream in pain. The Ironborn's overhead slash was blocked by Naruto, though he had to use both hands. After a second of struggling, he forced the Ironborn back, then with a one-handed sweep, sliced across both of his shins, slicing through skin, muscle and severing bone. The Ironborn screamed as he fell onto his back, right on top of the jug covering him in volatile green liquid. Naruto, in his rage, didn't stop to think as he pulled a torch off the wall and tossed it at the Ironborn. But when he saw the green light, he knew he made a mistake and turned to run and escape the blast. Unfortunately for Naruto, he only made it a few steps before the edge of the flames burned his back, causing him to fall in pain. King Landing, 291 AC. It was several weeks after the end of the Greyjoy Rebellion that Naruto could be found in the training yard in the Red Keep. His burns may be fully healed, but the pain it caused him was great. Everything caused him pain, but it was slowly getting better. At the end of the rebellion, Balin along with Theon and Yara had been dragged before the court. Balin, as punishment for his rebellion, had right arm and left leg smashed to pieces with Robert's hammer, resulting in both limbs permanently crippled, to serve as an everlasting reminder to Balin and the Ironborn that they were not to rebel again. Worse, he was publicly neutered, turning him into a eunuch so that he couldn't father replacement children. But the worst of it all was that Theon and Yara were forced to watch to instill fear of the gods in the next Lord of the Iron Islands. "Why don't you give up?" Jaime said, seeing his nephew give a weak swing with his right hand, the dummy barely moving. "With your injuries, it's going to be impossible for you to wield a sword." "Oh yes, because this is what I wanted to fucking hear when I got up this morning," Naruto said sarcastically, his tone full of venom. "Jaime Lannister, the greatest oath breaker and most arrogant sack of shit to ever live, telling me I'll never wield a sword. What the hell do you know? You never had to try to achieve anything in your goddamn life," he yelled as he swung at the dummy again. Naruto had been exposed to bad language at an early age, due to his father, and the intense pain his burns were causing him, made him speak out of anger. He cursed his mother for never loving him before being burned. He cursed Joffrey for stealing his mother's affections from him. He cursed Jaime for being an arrogant fucking cunt that thought the sun shined out of his ass. He cursed Tywin and all the Lannisters. His outburst made his uncle stop the insult he was about to fire off. "Say that again," Jaime asked with an edge. "You're the son of Tywin Lannister. You had the talent to be a great swordsman, you had the best instructors money can buy, and you had the love of both your parents. What the hell do you know about struggle? You never had to fight to earn your mother's affection, and you never had to give it any effort to be a great swordsman. You have never been burned with wildfire and are not in constant pain because of them, so what the fucking hell gives a worthless piece of human trash like you the right to tell me what I can and can't be?" Naruto swinging the practice sword only to have nothing happen. Damn it, groaned the boy. Why you, Sir Jamie, Sir Barristan called out as he walked up. The king wants to have a word with you. Now. Jamie, deciding not to push his luck today, left. Sir Barristan looked at Naruto's hand and his form was messed up. You're holding the blade wrong, my prince, Barristan the Bold said, stepping forward and showing the boy the right way to wield a blade. Now, do it the way I showed you. Rah, the boy yelled, swing the blade with all his might, and to his utter shock the dummy toppled over and smacked against the ground. At this rate, my prince, I think you'll become better than your uncle if you keep this rate up. Barristan said, smiling. I intend to, Naruto said through gritted teeth as he continued training. Joffrey was hiding behind the pillar. He glared at his younger brother. He hated his younger brother. His father never wanted to do anything with him, yet his black-haired siblings got to spend time with Robert whenever they wanted. Joffrey loathed his siblings for taking his father's affections from him. He would teach his little brother a lesson. He knew from watching that Naruto's back was hypersensitive to pain. Joffrey would show his little brother what happens when he takes something from him. Naruto walked back to the rack to pick up some more training swords. Naruto was sweaty though, and lifted up his shirt to wipe off the sweat. His entire back from his hairline all the way down to his waist was a very bright cherry red. Joffrey saw his chance and rushed at his brother with a sadistic glint in his eye, picking up a blunted training sword. Naruto finished wiping his face off when he heard something running towards him. Naruto turned his head just in time to see Joffrey swing his sword, but he was too slow to move and the blunted sword struck him in his back. Joffrey was too weak to actually break or fracture anything, but when the sword struck Naruto's hypersensitive back, Naruto's mind erupted in an explosion of pain. GGGGRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRRrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrrr letting a red-hot steel blade stab every single one of his nerves. Naruto hunched over after he finished roaring. Joffrey winded up for another strike and Baratheon, who had just come back from grabbing a sip of water, began rushing to stop it. Naruto got to him first though. "I'll kill you, bastard!" Naruto roared as he caught Joffrey's arm. Naruto eyes bloodshot as he snapped Joffrey's elbow against his shoulder before throwing his to the ground and pummeling him in the face. When Joffrey tried to stop him with his good hand, Naruto broke his wrist and elbow and pummeled him further, blood flying with every blow. RRRAAAHHHHH. Naruto roared as he pummeled the shit out of Joffrey, his hair, face and fists drenched in his secret half-brother's blood. "My prince, stop this," Baratheon said as he pulled Naruto off of Joffrey. Naruto was screaming bloody murder as tried to escape Baratheon's hold. Joffrey, by this point, was unconscious, with 2 broken arms, his face pummeled to a pulp and covered in his own blood. Cersei, who had been looking for Joffrey, saw him in this state and rushed to kneel beside her eldest son, and yelled at 2 Lannister guards, who having heard commotion, arrived. "Get your prince to the maester. Now," she screamed at them. The 2 guards hurriedly picked up Joffrey and carried him to the maester. Cersei stood up, eyes shining with barely contained fury. She slapped Naruto hard across the face, make his head swerve to one side. "How dare you hurt your brother like that?" she yelled at him, ignoring the fact that Joffrey had attacked her son. Baratheon hesitantly let him go and consoled Naruto as the young prince finally calmed down and realized what he had done. Throne room. Later. "I want him punished, Robert." Cersei screamed at Robert on the Iron Throne as Jon Arryn stood by, with Baratheon standing close to Naruto and Naruto had his head down. "He nearly killed my boy. My first boy. 7 hells. Joffrey attacked him. Naruto was only defending himself." Robert fired back. "I don't want him near Joffrey anymore. He's already tried to kill Joff once, and he will do it again. I want him exiled," she screamed at Robert, forgetting for a moment that Naruto was Robert's favorite son. Robert got really angry and actually punched her in the face, sending her tumbling to the ground, her face swelling and nose bleeding. "Get out of my sight, you fucking whore. Before you piss me off anymore and I do something you won't live to regret." Cersei left to see the maester before Robert sighed. John looked concerned. Robert, John said, that was too far, my boy. I know, John, I shouldn't have done it. That was not kingly. But she made me so angry when she said that. I just saw red. Robert said lamely. With all due respect, Robert, maybe it would be a good idea to get him away from the capital for a little bit. John Aaron suggested, causing Robert to turn sharply. What the hell are you talking about? Robert asked. Just until things calm down. Young Naruto has mentioned that his back is slowly getting less sensitive. Maybe a year-long fostering in the Vale will help him. John suggested, and Robert, due to his own experience fostering in the Vale, definitely saw some benefits to this. Who did you have in mind? Robert asked. Lord Yon Royce mentioned that would be interested in fostering him for a year. John said. Robert thought about it and it seemed like things could not go wrong. Send a message to Royce. Tell him that he can foster my son for a year. Robert said as he got off his throne and went to console his favorite son. Are you sending me away? Naruto said weakly, sniffling as he did. It's not sending you away. It's a fostering. Many lords do it to help their children develop bonds with other houses and promote friendship. And it also has the benefit of keeping you away from your mother while she is in a mood. Robert admitted, it's only for a year, and with any luck, your back will be fully healed. I didn't mean to do it, Dad, Naruto tried to say cause he did feel ashamed of almost killing his brother, even if Joffrey was a prick and deserved it. I know, Robert said as he knelt down so he could gently hug his favorite son, who returned the gesture. You mother is unreasonable where your cunt brother is concerned. He is a cunt, isn't he? Naruto said, joking with his father. Yes he is. Robert and Naruto laughed, forgetting their troubles for a moment and just being father and son. 2 weeks later, a cold wave of water splashed over him, waking Naruto from his unconsciousness. His body shivered from the freezing cold as another splash of salty sea water hit his back and he realized he was in the bowels of a ship. The rocking ship smelled terrible with the mixture of piss and shit mingled with the stench of vomit and the salty air of the ocean they were sailing on. The last thing he remembered was getting on a ship for Gulltown in the Vale, but halfway there, the ship was attacked by a horde of pirates, led by Euron. They captured him and knocked him out, and now he was here. He looked up to find that his hands were still in manacles hooked to the low ceiling. Frantically, he began to pull his hands down, trying to break the binding but to no avail. After a while, he gave up and looked around his surroundings and found a dozen or so men and women in the same predicament as him. Good to see you're alive. Thought ye were dead fair a while there. Naruto heard a gruff voice and turned his gaze ahead of him to find a man staring back at him. How long have I been out? He asked the man. A splash of freezing water washed over him again, making gasp at the coldness that felt like daggers stabbing at his back. He had to grit his teeth to prevent the scream that wanted to escape him since his back was still not fully healed. A few days, 3 at most, the man answered him. He looked at Naruto up and down, examining closely. Fancy lookin' clothes are wearing. Must be a lord's bastard, eh boy? Your lord father got tired of talkin' care of ye. No, Naruto responded briskly, I am a prince, son of King Robert Baratheon. The man stared at him silently for a moment before cackling a raspy laugh. Oh yeah, then I am the fucking god of sex. Welcome to slavery. 299 AC. Lee. Outside of Lee, the Golden Company was camped. The Golden Company is a company of sellswords founded by the great bastard, Edgar Rivers, known as Bittersteel. They are considered the largest, most famous, and most expensive sellsword or mercenary company in the free cities. Despite the notorious unreliability of sellswords, the Golden Company is reputed to have never broken a contract. Their motto is, our word is good as gold, while their war cry, beneath the gold, the bitter steel, pays homage to their founder. In the Captain General's tent, laid a 19-year-old young man. Naruto Baratheon, the Wildfire Knight, at 19 years of age, stood 6 feet 3 inches, with a muscular and ripped physique as he threw on some black pants and boots, sitting on the edge of his bed, before looking at some of the letters of his desk, most of them containing offers for contracts. Naruto read through them absent-mindedly while his thoughts drifted. After he had been sold into slavery, he was sent to serve a youngish master, serving him as a steward. Thankfully, his master was not into little boys, though Naruto was often forced to watch his master as he had sex with other female slaves. During this time, his back finally healed up, so he was no longer under extreme amounts of pain. At 13, the Golden Company sacked Yunkai for trying to renege on paying them for destroying several small Dothraki hordes that were threatening the city, which allowed Naruto to escape his imprisonment, and he joined up with the Golden Company. He quickly rose through their ranks and within 2 years, became the Captain General, which was the title for the overall commander of the Golden Company, replacing Miles Blackheart Toing when he died in battle in 295 AC, who had been something of a mentor to him. Under Naruto, the Golden Company expanded from their original 10,000 men to 70,000 men, cementing their place as the largest and most powerful private army for hire in the world. He had fought over 100 battles with the company and had grown to like being a part of it so much that he actually did not want to leave. When given a choice between returning home or staying with the company, he opted to stay with them. The truth is, he enjoyed the freedom the Golden Company gave him. As a soldier in the company, the only things he had to worry about were who they would fight next. He loved the freedom to fight who he wanted, the camaraderie between the men in the company, and the freedom to get drunk and have sex with whoever was willing, since he would never rape a woman. Naruto had suffered for 2 years as a slave, and he felt now that being a prince of the 7 kingdoms was in a way, its own form of slavery, because his actions would always be under scrutiny and he couldn't do whatever he wanted. Part of him did regret his decision, though, missing his beloved father and not being there for his funeral and his fellow black-haired siblings Tommen and Micrella. He missed Renly but was never really close to Stannis and didn't really care about him. He certainly did not care about anyone in the Lannister side of his family. Especially not his elder brother, whose stupidity, cruelty, and lack of honor and discipline caused the War of the 5 Kings. As he read through the proposals, he found one with the stamp of the hand of the king. He read through it. Apparently, Varys had finally managed to find him. Not surprising that it took him so long, there were no little children in his army unless they were joining up. Tyrion, his uncle, was acting hand of the king, subbing for Tywin, who last Naruto heard, was getting his ass kicked by Robb Stark. Naruto read the message further and Tyrion wrote that he wanted to hire the Golden Company to fight for the Iron Throne. Tyrion stated that the Iron Throne would pay them 60,000 gold dragons a month, and any castles the company took, they would be allowed to keep all the spoils. Naruto had acquired a massive amount of wealth from his conquests. Under his leadership, the company destroyed Tirosh Root and Stem when they tried to renege on their payment, and they did the same thing to Murfor Lee, destroying both cities and claiming millions of pieces of gold as well as other treasures as spoils, while Lee claimed dominion over the disputed lands. They had crushed 8 Dothraki hordes. 3 of them didn't even number 1,000 Dothraki, but 2 of the ones he did destroy included the 15,000 Dothraki in Khal Motho, a 60-year-old Khal with his riders being just as old as him, and the 20,000 Khalasar of Khal Zekko, during his usual threatening of Qohor. He took all their riches as well, and the city of Qohor paid him with a massive chest of gold and reforging some Valyrian steel he had taken from Tirosh and Mur into a suit of armor and a katana blade for him. He also mopped up the 3 Khalasars under Khal's Pono, Jakko, and Jamo. He had destroyed several sellsword companies, his most famous being the Windblown Company, where he had gotten the Valyrian steel for his katana from a Dothraki he had killed that had a Valyrian steel rack. The most loot he had earned, though, was when he destroyed Nugis 2 years ago and turned it and the islands that surround it into an uninhabitable wasteland. All in all, the Golden Company had amassed a fortune equivalent to 400 million gold dragons, and Naruto personally owned 25 million. Naruto did still care about his family, and right before his dad had the fatal accident, had paid off all the crown's debts and put 2 million gold dragons in the coffers, basically an 8 million gold dragon loan from himself. He could not let the Iron Throne fall because Robb Stark and his only disliked Baratheon uncle would probably not pay him back. Looks like he was finally going back to home. Do you have to do that here? Tyrion asked Bronn, who was cleaning his hands. Tommen mostly ignored it. I like to keep me hands clean. He pointed out. Yes, but do you have to do it here? Tyrion pointed out, and Bronn tossed the nail clippers down. You should start wearing the gold cloak. I don't want to wear a gold cloak. Bronn said, you're commander of the city watch. You shouldn't be dressed like a common sellsword. Tyrion pointed out, a cloak slows you down in a fight, makes it hard to move quietly. And the gold catches the light, so you're nice and easy to spot at night. Bronn explained, while I agree with you, you're not exactly sneaking through alleyways any longer. You're a leader now, you are supposed to stand out. Tommen pointed out, we had a deal, and wearing a gold cloak wasn't part of it. Bronn mentioned, fine, no gold cloak. Tyrion complained. A few seconds later, Bronn started tapping the table with his fingers. What? Tyrion asked when it got annoying. What? Bronn asked. What? Why are you staring at me? Tyrion asked in annoyance, and Bronn scoffs. You don't want me cleaning me nails. You don't want me looking your way. Why am I here? He demanded. To help me and my nephew plan the defense of King's Landing. Tyrion says, exasperated, and Bronn laughs. Stannis will be here any day. And one of these explains how to beat him. Bronn sighs. Tyrion looks at the cover and reads, An History of the Great Sieges of Westeros, by Archmaester Chevalathan. Chevalatish. Chevaltish. I'd swap all your books for a few good archers. Bronn said. Maybe so, but having a plan is better than no plan at all, Tommen countered as Varys walked in. My Lord Hand, my prince, commander. I must compliment you on the gold cloak's performance these last few weeks. Did you know there has been a marked drop in thievery? Varys said. I did not know, Tyrion mentioned as he and Tommen turned to Bronn. And how did you accomplish this marked drop in thievery? Quote, me and the lads rounded up all the known thieves. Bronn said. For questioning, Tommen asked in uncertainty as he figured Bronn wasn't that kind of guy. No, Bronn said, implying that he killed them before sitting down. It's just the unknown thieves we need to worry about now. Maybe this part's not in your books. See, it's not the fighting that kills most people. It's the starving. Food's worth more than gold. Noble ladies sell their diamonds for a sack of potatoes. Things get bad enough, the poor start eating each other. The thieves, they love a siege. Soon as the gates are sealed, they steal all the food. By the time it's all over, they're the richest men in town. Given the circumstances, my lord, I believe extreme measures are warranted. Varys said to Tyrion before he saw what book Tyrion was reading. The Great Sieges of Westeros. Thrilling subject. Shame Archmaester Chevalathan wasn't a better writer. Stannis knows King's Landing, Tyrion said as he grabbed a map of King's Landing. He knows where the walls are strongest and he knows which gates are weakest. Tommen spies one entrance to the city that catches his eye. The Mud Gate. It's in poor condition and half-decent ram will break it down in 10 minutes and it's only 10 yards from the water. It's the easiest to breach. Stannis is bringing all 40,000 of his men and he can't afford to commit them to the more reinforced gates. The Mud Gate the most likely spot he'll land. And if Stannis does attack the Mud Gate, what is our plan? Varys asked. We could throw books at his men. Bronn suggested cheekily. We don't have that many books. Varys pointed out seriously. We don't have that many men, either. Tommen countered seriously. What do we have? Varys asked and Tyrion's eyes sparked with enlightenment as a plan formed in his head. Jars of pig shit, he said, Bronn and Tommen smirking as they caught on to his plan. It was at that point that Lancel Lannister ran in. My lord, he said frantically as he huffed and puffed. Cousin, Tyrion said in mock delight. Wonderful to see you again. Did my sister send you? No, my lord. There is a massive army sitting outside the King's Gate. Lancel said quickly. What, Stannis? He can't be here already. We still have 4 days at least. Tyrion said in disbelief as he jumped out of his seat. It's the Golden Company, Lancel yelled hysterically. They are outside the King's Gate and they want to speak to you at once. Something about a contract you offered them. Good. They got my message, Tyrion said with genuine relief. You hired the Golden Company, uncle? Tommen asked. When I first arrived back in King's Landing, I sent out several missives to prominent sellsword companies to get them to fight for us. The Golden Company was one of them, though I'm surprised they accepted. With any luck, we'll have another 10,000 men for the siege. Come on along, Hod, Bronn, Tommen. You can come too, Lord Varys. My lord, Lancel called out before Tyrion left. I couldn't get an accurate count of their men, but it was definitely more than 10,000 men. The King's Gate. You know, I think the Golden Snitch was underselling it. Bronn commented. You wouldn't be wrong, Tyrion said as they surveyed the site in front of them to see way more than 10,000 men. How many men do you count? 50,000, 65,000, it's kinda hard to tell. Tommen said as 5 men walked toward the gate from the company but stopped 10 yards outside archery range. Well, we may as well speak with their leader, Tyrion said as he, Tommen, Bronn, Varys, and Pod walked down and out of the gate, stopping 1 yard from them. Tyrion was able to get a look at the 5 men. The one on the far left was a white-haired summer islander with skin as dark as soot. He wore his worldly wealth upon his person, including a feathered cloak of green and orange, which was magnificent to behold. He wore a lord's ransom in golden arm rings, with a quiver of golden-heart arrows and a golden-heart bow holstered on his back. Next to him was a Lyseni man with pale lilac eyes and long white gold hair. His lips were very full, giving him an almost feminine appearance at first glance. His fingernails were painted purple, and his earlobes dripped with pearls and amethysts. He wore a red hooded cloak that covered his entire body and was made of Myrish silk. On the far right was a cadaverous-looking fellow, with a pointed black beard and blood-red hair that tumbles about his shoulders in oiled ringlets. He wears a lord's ransom in golden arm rings and a leopard skin draped across one shoulder. Next to him was lean 30-year-old man with dirty blonde hair that was combed back, clean-shaven face, and blue eyes. He had a saber tied to his left hip that had a golden skull for a pommel, and he wore a standard set of Golden Company-issued armor. The middle figure was the most interesting. The suit of armor that he wore was dyed pitch black, yet the pauldrons, breastplate, gauntlets, and helmet bore gold accents. In the center of the breastplate was a black stag, wreathed within wildfire green flame. The helm was decorated with large stag antlers. The stag antlers themselves were embossed with gold and pointed upward yet curved inward, giving it a demonic look. The helm itself had a V-shaped visor, and for some reason, nothing but his hard blue yes could be seen. Tyrion noted that his armor almost identical to that of Robert Baratheon during the rebellion. The sword at his hip though was the equally interesting. It was a katana with an ornate bronze guard. Guard is an oval shape, and the handle seems to be braided from black handle. The blade features several intricate ornaments, most notable as a relief of a dragon at the endpoint of the hilt. The scabbard is black, made of traditional lacquered wood. It also features a yellow sigillo, the cord used to tie the katana to the waist. 2. It was the man in stag armor that spoke. You are Tyrion Lannister, acting hand of the king. I am, Tyrion affirmed. I am Garren Greenflame, Captain General of the Golden Company. We are here to accept the contract outlined in this missive you sent to us. Naruto said, using his alias, which was the reason Varys had not found him for so long. He dared not use his real name, even over in Essos. The man on my far left is Black Balak, and the man between him and me is Lysan Omar. To my far right is Gorys Edorian, and the man between Gorys and me is Harry Strickland. These are my officers. Well met, Captain General, Tommen and Tyrion both said. We can talk more in my command tent, Naruto said as he motioned for them to follow. He led them to a golden tent in the middle of the camp surrounded by a perimeter of spikes with gilded skulls tied to them. They entered the tent and sat down. Refreshments, Naruto offered his guests. Tyrion graciously accepted, and Tommen and Bronn also accepted a glass. So, let's talk business, Naruto said as he leaned back in his chair. Let's start with how many men is the company bringing to the table? Last I heard, the company only had 10,000 men, Tommen stated. I was wondering the same thing, Tyrion said. At one point, the company did only have 10,000 men at one time. Now, ever since the Captain General took over, our numbers have swelled to 70,000 men, as well as our riches, Harry said to the side. Now, about the monthly stipend you promised, Gorys mentioned. Yes, the crown can afford to pay the monthly amount mentioned in the missive, so we are all good on that end. I will have the stipend ready to be distributed every month. Tyrion said. Good, Lysander said before continuing, and the part about how we get to take all the loot from the castles we can. Well, since the contract outlines that and I plan to have you take out the other two rival kings, which includes the Greyjoys and nobody cares about them, then yes. Excellent, Naruto said. They signed 2 copies of the contract, one for Tyrion and one for Naruto. Could Lord Tyrion, Prince Tommen and I have the room, gentlemen? There is something I need to discuss with them privately, Naruto said. His officers left the tent and Tyrion mentioned for Pod and Bronn to stand outside the tent. So, what did you wish to discuss? Tyrion asked. Naruto said nothing for a moment before taking off his helmet, letting his spiky black hair free. He placed the helmet down on his desk. It's been a long time, little brother. Uncle, Naruto said. Naruto. Tommen asked as his beloved older brother stood before the younger Baratheon prince, alive and well. Yeah, Tommen, it's me. Who else would get burned by wildfire and save Sella from being a salt wife? Naruto joked and Tommen walked around the table. He groaned as Tommen punched him pretty hard in the face. Ow, that actually hurt. That was for not coming home sooner. Tommen pointed out angrily before his expression softened and he hugged his elder brother, which Naruto returned. I'm glad you okay, Tommen whispered as he hugged his older brother tightly. Me too, little brother, Naruto said as he hugged him back. Outside, the sound of steel clashing with steel reverberated through the air. Though who was sparring intensely was Naruto and Tommen. Their blade strikes were lightning quick, with no wasted movement at all. Some of the men could barely keep track of their blades as the two brothers. They had been sparring for 15 solid minutes, neither one of them able to gain ground. Tommen was more nimble and faster with his strikes, while Naruto was almost as quick, sturdier, and stronger. Now I'm glad I fought Never the young prince. He probably would have kicked my ass in 10 seconds. Bronn mentioned to Tyrion, Pod, and Varys, while remembering how Tommen had killed Ser Vardis Egan in under 20 seconds. Yes, my nephews are very impressive with their swordplay, Tyrion noted as the two brothers locked blades and clashed, with Naruto slowly pushing Tommen back. Tyrion turned to Varys. How come you didn't tell me my nephew ran the Golden Company when you tracked them down for me, Lord Varys? Because I did not know, my lord. My little birds managed to find the prince 6 years ago in Yunkai, but by the time I told the king and the search party he sent to retrieve him got to Yunkai, the Golden Company had already sacked the city. I lost track of him after that since he used an alias to go by, and there were other matters that demanded my immediate attention. Varys answered. It was at that moment that Naruto managed to get the upper hand and ducked under Tommen's horizontal slash, swinging the flat side of his blade, tripping Tommen up, making him fall on his back as Naruto pointed his sword at Tommen. I yield, Tommen said, breathing heavily. The men cheered as Naruto helped him up. That was a great match. It's been a while since I had someone who could actually match me in a sword fight. Who taught you? Naruto asked. It was Ser Barristan. I squired for him from age 9 to 12 and trained very hard every day. In the last tourney, which was for the appointment of Lord Eddard Stark, I actually won the melee and beat Uncle Jaime in front of everyone. Dad was so happy seeing Jaime humiliated in public that he knighted me afterwards as Ser Tommen Baratheon, the Storm Knight. Tommen said proudly. Well, I'm sorry I missed that. I would have loved to see that arrogant uncle of ours get knocked on his ass. Naruto and Tommen laughed as they put the training swords away. Why didn't you come back? Tommen asked, showing a little vulnerability. At first, I couldn't. I didn't have the money after I escaped Yunkai when it was sacked, so I joined the Golden Company to get the money. But by the time I was 15, I no longer wanted to leave. I loved the freedom that came with being in the company, Naruto said as he placed a comforting hand on Tommen's shoulder, but I never stopped loving my siblings or missing Dad. Now that I am here, I wished I had come back sooner. They retired back to his command tent and Tyrion, Varys, Pod, and Bronn joined them. So, how were things after my unintentional departure? Naruto said as he poured them some Arbor Red. Joffrey was bedridden for a whole year while Pycelle and a group of maesters that specialized in healing fixed him up. The Red Keep had never been quiet in Dramalis, it was almost peaceful. Tyrion said, well, I wouldn't say that, Uncle, Tommen mentioned, causing Tyrion to groan. That's why I said, almost, peaceful, dear nephew, Tyrion smirked as he drank. Queen Cersei was hysterical at the crown prince being bedridden for the beating you gave him, Prince Naruto. It did not end until Joffrey was fully healed, Lord Varys said respectfully. Damn, I was hoping his face would have scarred from that. Naruto grumbled. Me too, brother, Tommen said. After he recovered, he got worse where me and Mycrella were concerned. Without you there to shield us, we got the full brunt of his cruelty. It didn't help that Mother always defended him. He skinned our cats alive and she called it a child's curiosity. It certainly made me and Sella lose any respect or love we still had for Mother. Me and our sister grew to hate our mother, as well as Joffrey and Jaime. At Naruto's puzzled expression, Tommen explained, you may not remember but while you were recovering from your burns, Mycrella and I spent nearly all of our free time near you. I kinda remember. You, Sella, Uncle Renly, and Dad were the first ones I woke up to. Naruto said. Yeah, well our bitch of a mother didn't even bother to visit you once. Neither did Joffrey or Jaime. Tyrion did visit you a couple times, so at least one Lannister is not completely hopeless. Tommen smirked. You wound me nephew, deeply. Tyrion joked and Tommen smiled. Love you too, Uncle, Tommen said, which made Naruto smile a little. Anyway, me and our sister tried to keep our hatred bottled up and for a time it worked. But on our 12th name day, Joffrey did something that made us both lose our tempers. Flashback. Joffrey placed 2 boxes on the table in front of Tommen and Mycrella. What is this? Myrcella asked. Your presents, Joffrey said with that mad insane grin on his face. Go on, open them. Tommen and Mycrella didn't really want ya, since Joffrey smiling was never a good thing, but they figured they should get it over with. So they opened up their boxes. You vile loathsome evil little cockroach. Tommen and Mycrella shouted at him in anger as Robert looked at what was inside of the box. You little shit, how dare you do this on their name day? Robert shouted. Joffrey had skinned both Tommen and Mycrella's pregnant cats, tore out their still developing babies and tossed the skin and babies in a box. He was hoping to make them cry and humiliate them. Something inside Tommen and Myrcella broke that day as Cersei tried to keep Robert from killing Joffrey. They had put up with their elder brother's abuse for a long time without Naruto to protect them. They just put up with it, longing for the day when it was over. Since Myrcella would eventually be married off to some influential lord and Tommen was most likely going to inherit the Stormlands since Renly still had not found himself a girl, they figured it was bound to happen. But this act caused them to finally lose control of their Baratheon rage as it erupted within them. Tommen grabbed a steak knife and stabbed it into Joffrey's left hand which rested on the table, causing the insane bastard to scream in pain. Myrcella grabbed a glass pitcher of wine that was nearby and smashed it against Joffrey's face, causing to break against his face, embedding some glass in his face and causing wine to fly everywhere. Myrcella pulled the knife out of Joffrey's hand as the bastard fell on his back screaming in pain. Both of them leapt over the table and Myrcella stabbed the knife into Joffrey's right leg, causing more screams. Tommen and Myrcella then proceeded to wail on Joffrey, both of them shouting at how much they despised him, reviled him, and how he was a vile insane monstrosity that should been drowned at birth. Robert managed to pull his children away while Joffrey was taken to the Grandmaesters to be treated for nearly being beaten to death again. Once Tommen and Myrcella calmed down, the awkward silence was broken by Tyrion, who in his infinite wisdom, said, well on that note, I say we should get out the strong wine. Flashback end. Naruto applauded Tommen for what he did. Good, that little shit deserved it. Well, it sure felt good to let loose, but Dad had both me and Myrcella foster elsewhere to protect us and let us grow in an environment where we weren't under constant threat from Joffrey. I was sent to foster 1 year with our Uncle Stannis, then with Lord Yohn Royce in the Vale for another year, then I fostered with Ned Stark for my last year and got to know his children before Jon Arryn died and Dad came up north to retrieve me and get Ned to be his hand. Myrcella spent 3 years in Highgarden. Tommen said to Naruto's surprise. Dad let the fat flower have his only daughter. Naruto said in surprise. No, Tyrion said. See, I suggested the idea to Tommen to suggest to his father to let Myrcella make friends with Marjorie Tyrell and learn from Olenna Tyrell. Ah, the Queen of Thorns. Now I see what you were going for. She is an example all women should learn from, Naruto said. Yeah, so Myrcella learned subtlety, manipulation and privately learned how to wield daggers and poison while maintaining her sweet disposition. I focused on my martial skill, military tactics, diplomacy, and how to rule effectively. Tommen said. Well, I am glad to hear you are doing well, brother. Naruto said as he finished his wine. Now, let's talk about the impending attack. That night, Cersei's quarters. Thank you, Podrick, Tyrion said as Pod poured him some wine. Odd little boy, Cersei snidely said. I have a certain sympathy for odd little boys. Tyrion said. You and Varys both, Cersei commented rudely. Excellent lamprey pie, were you slaving away in the kitchen all day? Tyrion mocked as he knew she did not cook her own food. I hear Joffrey and Tommen plan on fighting, Cersei said as she turned her back to him. An inspiration for the troops. The young king in his shining armor fighting to defend the capital against the wicked old rebel. And his younger brother who was a million times more skilled than the king could ever hope to be. Tyrion said. They're only boys. They are not ready, Cersei said as her desire to control everything blinded her to the fact that Joffrey was technically a man, and Tommen could easily defeat anyone who came at him, bar the Mountain and maybe Jaime and or Barristan. Joffrey is what, 20? And Tommen has already killed a far more experienced knight, fought with me in our grandfather's army at the Battle of the Green Fork, not to mention, beat Jaime last year in a tourney. Tommen will be fine, Tyrion said as Cersei sent all the servants out. Joffrey's place is not on the battlefield, Cersei snarled, revealing that her true concern was mainly for her golden boy and not her trueborn son. It's not on the throne, either. Or being a Baratheon, since he isn't one, or even being alive for that matter. Sadly for all of us, Tyrion mocked her, as he had known for a long time that Joffrey was not Robert's son. Do you think I'm an idiot? Cersei demanded of him as she turned to face him. Do you really want an answer to that? Tyrion mockingly asked. You shipped off my only daughter. And now you want to send both my eldest and youngest sons to the battlefield to die. Cersei accused. It's not like Joffrey has to do any fighting, he just needs to be there. He'll have his Kingsguard protecting him. He has the finest armor gold can buy. The men will fight more fiercely seeing their king fighting beside them instead of hiding behind his mother's skirts like he has for the last 2 decades. Tyrion said, besides, when the last time you ever showed any concern for your trueborn children? You openly scorned Naruto his whole life and didn't even visit him when he was burned with wildfire, saving poor Myrcella from being a sex slave to the Ironborn. You never once tried to help Tommen and Myrcella when Joffrey tormented them, always finding some way to rationalize his insanity, which eventually got to the point that you drove them away and they now despise you completely. Face it, you don't really care about your trueborn children because they aren't your pure Lannister children with Jaime, although even if they were, I somehow doubt anything would change. Cersei grit her teeth hard as the dwarf openly insulted her with her past sins. Tyrion, for his part, had slowly noticed over the years, as he developed a genuine and loving bond with Myrcella and Tommen, that he no longer cared about his bitch of a sister or his unfeeling asshole of a dad, who blames him like a child for something that was in no way, shape, or form, Tyrion's fault. Tyrion had come to finally stop blaming himself for his mother's death when Tommen researched the subject and brought the results to his attention. Young mothers, older mothers, poor or rich mothers, all could die, not only in childbirth but also due to complications afterwards. In fact, as many as 1 in 3 women die on average in childbirth. At some point after hearing this, Tyrion just subconsciously stopped trying to earn his sister and father's love, as he realized they would never change. Tyrion had Jaime, Tommen, and Myrcella. He had Kevan and Jenna, his father's younger siblings. He hoped now that Naruto was back, he could develop a genuine bond with him. He didn't need Cersei and Tywin. Do you know why Varys is so dangerous? Cersei asked. Because he has the best spy network in all of Westeros, bar none. Because he knows everything we do before we do it, Tyrion said, as these were valid reasons for considering Varys to be a dangerous man. Because he doesn't have a cock, Cersei said, implying he lacked the passions that drive most men. Neither do you, Tyrion pointed out. Being a eunuch would not make Tywin or Roose Bolton any more or less dangerous than they already are. Perhaps I'm dangerous, too, Cersei started, only to be interrupted by Tyrion. Oh please, don't jest, Cersei. Between you, me and Jaime, you're the least threatening. Jaime inherited our father's martial skill and talent for warfare, though he hasn't had a lot of time to develop the latter. I inherited Tywin's intellect, cunning, and political skill. You, on the other hand, only inherited his pettiness, cruelty, vanity, and his arrogance. So, nothing all that useful. You think you're as smart as our father, but the truth is you don't even come close to Tywin or me for that matter. Truth be told, your former husband was smarter than you. Tyrion insulted her. How dare you insult me, you worthless little dwarf. It's bad enough you killed my mother, now you dare to insult me. Cersei's rant was again interrupted. Oh yes, get angry. Act like the spoiled, pathetic child you really are. Because it's so much easier to blame me for mother's death, despite the fact that yours and Jaime's birth nearly killed her. You and father don't understand that women die in childbirth all the time. It just doesn't happen as much to highborns because we have access to maesters, so highborn women have a better chance at surviving. I've blamed myself for a long time for that, but I am done. And you still getting angry over it after all these years just shows how pathetic you and father really are. Cersei was stunned by how he continued to insult her and couldn't find words to counter his argument. Naruto's back, Tyrion mentioned absent-mindedly, as if he hadn't just verbally tore his sister a new one. What? Cersei asked. That's right, Cersei. Naruto is back in King's Landing, with all 70,000 men of the Golden Company at his back. Oh, did I forget to tell you that he leads the company now? My mistake. Anyway, any ideas that you are forming to have me killed or assassinated, I'd recommend you rethink that. Their word's as good as gold, and if I die before their contract is fulfilled, they will destroy the entire city, saving you and Joffrey for last. With that, Tyrion waddled off, leaving his pathetic sister to sort out her own shock. Tower of the Hand. Next day, Tyrion, Tommen, and Varys walk back into the Tower of the Hand to see Naruto, staring intently a map of Westeros. Ah, nephew, I trust the preparations on the Mudgate are going well, Tyrion said. No response came from Naruto. How did he do it? Naruto asked as he took a swig from his wine cup. Who do you mean? Tyrion asked and Naruto turned to him. Stannis, Naruto said as he walked to the other side of the table and looked at the map. I've gone over this confrontation maybe 100 times since Tommen told me about it, and yet every time, I come to the same conclusion. Stannis should have been crushed. Renly had 20x more men than Stannis and had Mathis Rowan and Randall Tarley, two men who are arguably better than Stannis at military strategy. Tommen isn't comfortable talking about it, so I ask you again. How did Stannis beat Renly and acquire the Stormlander forces? Tyrion looked Tommen who looked at Varys and jerked his head to Naruto, subtly telling Varys that Naruto needed to know what they knew. There are conflicting reports, my prince. Some of my little birds sing a tale of Renly being assassinated by his Kingsguard that was on duty that day. The member was Brienne of Tarth, only child of Selwyn Tarth. You sound like you have reason to doubt this claim, Naruto noted. If Brienne was truly working for Stannis, she would have defected to his side like the other Stormlanders did when they learned of Renly's death. Instead, she now protects the Lady Catelyn Stark. The other story is, which Lady Tarth claims to be truth, is that a shadow assassin with the face of Stannis killed Renly. Varys said, making Naruto lean on the table. And does Stannis have a red priestess in his service? Naruto asked with a dangerous tone in his voice. He does. He has even changed his sigil and added the fiery heart of the Lord of Light, the god the Red Priestesses, to it. Varys informed Naruto, causing him to slam his hands on the table. Then, he really did do it. Stannis murdered Renly. Naruto growled as he took deep breaths to maintain his cool and lose control of his Baratheon temper. A tear also slipped down his right cheek. Naruto had always been closer to Renly than his other uncles. That was because for him, Renly was the fun uncle. Renly would often get Naruto gifts of his favorite food every month. Renly introduced him to some of the Stormlander traditions and Baratheon traditions, like the stag hunt on the 13th name day, even though Naruto had to do his in Essos. Renly had introduced him to the basics of politics when he was young. Naruto still loved Robert as his father, but Renly had been the older brother he had hoped Joffrey would have been before Joffrey's insanity was revealed to him. Lord Stannis' conversion to the Red God R'hllor has left much dissension in his ranks, not least of which is the practice of burning people alive as sacrifices to the Lord of Light. Furthermore, on the eve of Lord Renly's death, Stannis was witnessed burning one of his bastard nieces by Robert at the stake by a Stormlander knight, and news of it has quickly spread through the camp. There are several Stormlords who were very unsettled by this event. Varys said, "Can we turn those disgruntled lords to our side?" Naruto asked as he wiped tear away. Yes, Prince Tommen had the same idea. A number of prominent Stormlander houses have secretly turned their cloak and will turn on Stannis when he attacks this city, as they have pledged their loyalty to Tommen as their Lord Paramount, since he is Robert's son and everyone still thinks you are dead. Varys said, "Good, now if you will excuse me, I need to be alone for a while." Naruto as he made to walk past them. Tommen clasped his brother's shoulder and said, "Will you be all right, brother? I know this is hard for you, since you and Renly were very close." "I'll be okay, Tommen. I just need a day to myself," Naruto said as he left. Naruto probably wandered the streets of King's Landing for several, aimlessly as he walked back to his camp. Everywhere he went he could see poverty. He had always known it was there, but as a kid, he never truly saw how bad it was in King's Landing. The city was made to hold 200,000 people, but it was holding nearly triple that number right now. The air stunk because the drainage systems were old, broken and backed up. Children and even babies were starving to death as he saw a number that were skin and bone. Women who didn't even work in a brothel had to whore themselves out just so they could get the money to feed their families. It disgusted him, how these people, his people, were forced to live in such poverty. All because of his inbred cunt of brother that called himself king. Yeah, Naruto knew Joffrey was not his brother. He had checked the book that Pycelle had that held the names and descriptions of every member of every house in Westerosi history, which was easy to do because Pycelle was still in a black cell. Durandons and Baratheons subsequently always had black hair and blue eyes. It did not matter if they married Tullys, Arryns, Tyrells, Gardeners, Starks, Myrtells, Danes, or even Lannisters. The Durandon Baratheon features always won out, no contest. After he discovered this, he went to Varys and he confirmed Naruto's suspicions by telling him of his mother's confession of her adultery to Eddard Stark, which Varys had personally borne witness to, since he hid behind a pillar where nobody spotted him. During the next 2 days, he sent out feelers throughout his company to see what the men would think if he had to become king. Surprisingly, most of his men wouldn't mind and would still follow him if he did become king, as it would give them a chance to settle down. With 2 nights left before Stannis showed up, Naruto made up his mind. Joffrey dies tonight. The Red Keep. Joffrey walked into his room in the Red Keep. He had just gotten his new sword and armor for the upcoming battle with Stannis, not that Joffrey knew a thing about fighting. Joffrey went through in his mind of all the disgusting, depraved things he would do to Sansa when he finally killed his uncle. Maybe he would let Ser Gregor have a go at her. Joffrey figured it would be a good punishment for Tommen since he interfered with his torment of Sansa. Flashback. Stop. Tommen thundered as he, Tyrion, and Bronn entered the throne room. The whole room parted as they made way for the 3 men. Tommen knelt before Sansa. Seeing her tear-streaked face was more than he could bear. He unclasped his cloak and draped it over her. "What kind of knight beats a helpless girl?" Tyrion asked with a glare. "The kind who serves his king, imp." Ser Meryn retorted back with an insult. "Careful now. Wouldn't want to get blood all over that pretty white cloak." Bronn taunted Meryn as Tommen helped her up to her feet and held her close. "She is to be your queen. Have you no respect for her honor?" Tyrion demanded of Joffrey. "I'm punishing her," Joffrey said in that bratty, nasally voice of his that just makes people want to rupture their eardrums so they don't have to hear him. "For what crimes? She doesn't fight her brother's battles, you brain-dead imbecile," Tommen shouted at Joffrey. You can't talk to me like that. The king can do as he likes. Joffrey shouted as he sat back on his throne. Maegor the Cruel, Baelor the Blessed, and Aerys the Mad all did as they liked. Tommen said as he stepped closer to Joffrey while leaving her with Tyrion. The first was assassinated for being too cruel, Baelor was delusional and starved himself to death, and like you, Aerys started a civil war when he executed the Warden of the North without just cause. Uncle Jaime never tell you what happened to him, Tommen cruelly stated. No one threatens his grace in the presence of the Kingsguard, Meryn stated as he had his hand on his sword. Oh, you think that was a threat? Tommen asked dangerously as he exploded with true Baratheon rage. Faster than Meryn could react, Tommen unsheathed his sword and with one fluid slash, cut open Meryn's throat. Tommen rounded on Boros Blunt, who was behind and sliced off both of his legs. The fat knight fell to the ground in pain, flailing around helplessly as Tommen sliced his right arm off before stabbing Blunt in the throat. Tommen then turned to Joffrey and pointed his sword at him, shouting, "If you or your Kingsguard ever hurt Sansa again, I will slaughter the rest of your Kingsguard and disembowel you from balls to brain." The lords and ladies of the court were stunned into silence. How couldn't they be? Tommen, the crown prince, had just executed 2 of the Kingsguard like they were nothing and threatened to do the same to Joffrey and the rest of the Kingsguard. Tommen then led Sansa away to comfort her and Joffrey tried to hide the fact that he had shit his pants. Flashback end. Joffrey had avoided Sansa after that, hoping to avoid being killed until he could get Ser Gregor to do his bidding and then he would put Tommen in his place. Then, he felt something prick his neck. Joffrey pulled it out to see a dart. He tried to move, but he couldn't get his arms and legs to respond as he fell to the ground. He tried to scream for help but he couldn't speak. Only wheezes escaped his throat. "Hello, brother," Naruto said as he came into view, causing Joffrey to try to scream but only pained wheezes escaped his throat. "Yeah, don't bother trying to scream for help. You've been injected with a poison." He paused for Joffrey's muted wheezes before continuing, "Don't worry, it's not the kind that can kill you. It leaves you paralyzed and takes away your ability to speak." Naruto picked him up and threw him on the bed. "You know, I kinda blame myself for this war that is currently ravaging the country. If only I had killed you back then. Well, let's fix that." Naruto pulls out a knife and cut Joffrey's mouth open from ear to ear. Joffrey's pained wheezes filled his ear. "I do admit, I would like to hear your screams, but I can't take the chance of someone hearing you and messing this up." Naruto gripped Joffrey's head with both of his hands, his thumbs pointed at Joffrey's eyes. Naruto's thumbs glowed wildfire green. He plunged them into Joffrey's eyes, burning them out, producing wheezed screams from Joffrey. Naruto pulled out his thumbs and examined the burned-out eye sockets of his half-brother. "Don't worry, bastard, I'll good care of the throne for you." "Better than you ever did, at any rate." Naruto smirked as he sliced Joffrey's throat open. He then plunged his hand into Joffrey's chest. He gripped his heart, disconnected the arteries from it and ripped it out of his chest. Naruto got off the bed and went over to the table, where he had placed a plate of cheese earlier. He put the plate of cheese next to the bastard and put the heart on it. He wiped his hand off on the bed before pulling out a letter that claimed the assassination was all Stannis' doing and placing it on the bed. "Now, time to go celebrate," Naruto said to himself as he disappeared in a flash of speed. He had this really beautiful red-haired whore waiting back in his tent, who was being occupied by his clone. He intended to have loads of fun tonight. To be continued in the next episode.